بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على إمام المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين ثم عما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I know it's Ramadan, and during Ramadan people usually just limit themselves to the fiqh of Sawm, the fiqh of fasting. However, those of you who have been studying with me recently, a lot of you have been studying the fiqh of nikah with me. And so what I would like to do is to give you guys a little excerpt from a classical text in that subject matter, going over very basic general principles, being the shurut of a valid nikah contract. So the main text we're going to be using is the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. This is it right here. That's how it looks. The text is very, 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 very old. It's one of the most used texts in the Maliki Madhab. The writer, Imam Ibn Abi Zayd, is called Little Malik because he almost never abandoned the opinions of Malik, or Maliku Saghira, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So Imam Ibn Abi Zayd starts with the arkan of nikah. The arkan of nikah means the pillars of nikah, what you absolutely need for your marriage to be valid. Now, before we open up into that, there is a I'm not going to say a misconception, but there is a popular, well, I am going to say there's a popular misconception that, that your nikah has to be done on a piece of paper, that it has to be done on, or rather with the courts, with American courts, and, that you have to pay some imam $300 to $400 to do your nikah. This is all gibberish. The truth of the matter is that nikah in and of itself, the word means sexual intercourse, but it's used to mean the contract specifically. It can be a verbal contract. It can be just verbal, of purely verbal agreement. It doesn't have to be a document or a piece of paper or something that you sign. It can be purely oral. And this is part of the reason why we have shuhud, witnesses, because of the fact that most of the time the nikah was verbal, you see. So that's one thing. I don't want anyone to have this misconception that, oh, unless I go get my nikah validated by an American court, that I'm not married under Islam. You don't need the American government to give you permission to do anything in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nor do you need to go to some imam to do your nikah. Islam does not have clergy. We don't have priests. We don't have these ranks of power. Anybody can marry anybody as long as they know what they're doing, you see. And in fact, some of my students, I tell them that, when they finish studying a certain text with me, like the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd, and we go through the marriage section completely, and they satisfy my requirements, that they can go and marry people off. They don't have to go to school for 10 years in order to do a nikah. Islam is not that difficult. A lot of the imams like to make it seem like it's that difficult, but honestly, that's because they want to hold power. They want to hold control over people. When in reality, they don't have that control to begin with, let alone to try to be holding it over people. Now, before we continue, that being said, disclaimer. If you do not know how to do a nikah, and you don't know the rules of nikah, and you don't know the rules of talaq, which is divorce, and you aren't trained to do these things, then you should not be doing them. Because what can happen is you can do a contract which is invalid and those two people will be technically having sex, but they will be fornicating. And on the Day of Judgment, Allah will be asking you about that. And it could be to the point where every time they're fornicated, you get punished for it because you're the one who led them into that. So it's a very serious matter, but it doesn't take 20 years to learn how to do nikah. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get some started. Get a little bit started, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So Ibn Abi Zayd, he says the arkan of nikah are a few things. He says, وَلَا نِكَاهَ إِلَّا بِوَلِيٍّ. The first thing he says is there is no nikah without a wali. The wali is a man who must be Muslim. He has to be free. What do I mean by free? Hurriya. He cannot be a slave. Now, in America, we don't have slaves anymore, right? We don't have slaves anymore, and so this particular point is kind of moot to us. There are no slaves here, so we don't have to worry about whether or not our wali is free. But back in the day, and in some other countries, there are still slaves, and you have to, make sure that your wali is indeed free. So another shurut, another condition, is that he be male. A woman cannot marry a woman off in nikah. And this is well known. This is actually stated in a hadith that we can find in Bulugh al-Maram. So one misconception that I've heard recently from a friend of mine who we were studying together, we were studying yesterday actually. He said that he had come across someone who told him that in order to be a wali, you had to be a certain age. You had to be an old man of 40, 50, 60. And the person who told him this actually told him, yes, you have to be this age, but he had no proof. He had no proof because he made it up. Or maybe he didn't make it up, but he took it from someone who made it up. There is no age requirement for a wali. You don't have to be 35 to be a wali. You have to have intellect. You have to have aql, you see. Nor should you let your wali be a child. Because what is the purpose of a wali? The purpose of a wali is to protect the rights of a woman in marriage. And a child does not know these things unless he's taught these things. But still, point being, you shouldn't have a child being your wali. But if you have someone who's 13, 12, and they have mastered the rules of nikah, it's fine. Now, of course, with all the grown adults in the city, in the ummah, we don't have to resort to such drastic measures. But should things happen to where you had to resort to that, it's there. So, you have to be male, you have to be free, but there's no age requirement. And one other thing that isn't a technical shurut, but it's really, really important, is again that the wali knows the rules of nikah. Think about it like this. If, let's say you're going to court for a crime that you didn't do, you were going to have to get a lawyer. You don't want to get a lawyer who doesn't know the law. You don't want to get a lawyer who hasn't gone to, let's say law school. You want to get someone who knows what they're doing. It's the same thing with nikah. With nikah, you are literally putting the life of a woman in the hands of another man. And it is your job as a wali to ensure that this woman who is under your care and guardianship, it is your responsibility to make sure that she goes to someone who will treat her correctly, who will treat her right. And even more so, that if you are a woman's wali, this is not technically something we have to do as walis, but it's something that is good. Check on her. Make sure that her husband isn't abusing her, be her guardian. It happens a lot of times where walis marry men off to these, they marry women off to these men, and then they never speak to them again. They're just used as a condition to be filled, and they don't actually fulfill the purpose. And women wind up getting abused because no one's checking on them, especially if she doesn't have family. So if you are a wali of someone, check on the woman that you married off as if, and a golden rule is treat her as if she were your daughter, right? So, a couple of things about wali. There are a bunch of hadith for everything I'm going to say, or not everything, I'm sorry, but for the technical positions. I'm not going to give them right now because I don't want the video to be lengthy. It's already going on 10 minutes and I haven't even gotten past wali. So we're just going to go through the positions, but if you guys have any questions and you want to see anything, you know how I am, just ask and the proofs will be given to you. A general proof for this situation that the wali is needed comes from the Muwatta of Imam Malik, where Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said that a woman is not married except with a wali, and he said that it has to be either a person, her father, a person from her family rather, a man with intellect, a man who has sound judgment, or a sultan, meaning a judge, or a sultan is actually a ruler. However, after World War I, there's no such thing as Islamic rulers anymore. That war kind of destroyed that principle. And so this really goes back to, or it has evolved into having or meaning an Islamic scholar or someone who knows what they're doing. So why do I say this? An important principle is that we have a big misconception that only a woman's father can be her wali. This is incorrect. There are hadith that say that a woman's father has, the greatest right, the greatest preference to be the wali, but it is not an absolute thing. And this is from the wisdoms of the religion, of the deen, because just because you're a Muslim doesn't mean you're just. There are Muslims who sell their daughters off to the highest bidder all the time, especially in places like the subcontinent. It happens all the time. And so the deen has given us ways to circumvent that being the only way a woman can be married. And in the Risala, we will see as we go deeper into it that Ibn Abi Zayd continues to say, the marriage is valid even if someone other than the father acts as the wali. And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said it in the Muwatta, of Imam Malik as well. So, another thing is that if you are a new Muslim, or a convert rather, and your parents are not converts, your father cannot be your wali. Your wali has to be a Muslim. This is one of the other conditions of the wali. Now, this may seem strange. Why does, my father knows me better than anybody. Why can't he be my wali? Because again, remember that the purpose of a wali is to make sure that the rights of a woman are secured and protected. And a non-Muslim does not know the rights of a Muslim. And so there is no possible way that he can make sure the rights of a Muslim woman are protected and secured. And so a Muslim man must be the wali of a Muslim woman, period. So those are some things about the wali. I was going to try to get through all of the conditions of the nikah, but I can see now that the video has gotten very long very quickly. So I'm actually just going to stop here and post some hadith for this matter in the group. And another day, inshallah, we'll continue on from the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd. Now, I will reiterate the part that we did go over. And it is that Ibn Abi Zayd, Qala Ibn Abi Zayd, وَلَا نِكَاحَ إِلَّا بِي wali. That there is no nikah, there is no marriage except with a wali. And this is the first condition of a valid marriage contract. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases us all in knowledge. And I pray that He allow us to be sincere in protecting our women folk from men who want to do nothing but abuse them and use them. And I pray that He protect our own daughters from this fitna when we have them, inshallah ta'ala. Wa subhanakallah wa bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.